This is my best attempt at tying one of my favorite stonefly patterns, Jake's Blackout stone. Designed by Montana Fly Company's Jake Shoots, it's a high-floating, easy-to-see fly. It looks super buggy and it can float a pretty substantially sized dropper. In this video, I'm tying it as a squala, but you can change the colors and size to match pretty much any species of stonefly. While some people like to tie the extended body off the back of the hook, I like tying them onto a shank first. If you have a tube fly attachment, that'll work great, but if not, just taking a streamer hook and some wire cutters and snipping off the eye is a pretty good substitute, and in my opinion makes this process a lot easier. If you asked me to tell you what color a squala stonefly is, I guess I would say it's a brownish, greenish gray. So to try and imitate that color profile, I'm taking a piece of gray foam here, coloring it up with brown and green Sharpie, and just smearing the ink. I think the outcome is pretty close. We're going to start with the extended body. I'm using olive 136 denier thread. Start your thread out on the bare shank and then work your way back to almost the very front of the shank. Take your piece of foam and double it over on either side of the shank. I think tying the extended body with the foam oriented with the edges vertical makes this step a little easier since the foam doesn't want to spin as much. Make your first segment, pulling your thread tight in both directions to make the segment even as possible. Then take a length of rubber leg material and loop it in between the two pieces of foam and tie the legs in on either side. This is a pretty tricky part, as you can see here. I missed my thread wrap on the first rubber leg segment, but as long as you bind them down, you can pull them into position. Bring your tying thread between the two pieces of foam and make one more segment, again pulling in opposite directions to make sure that segment is nice and symmetrical. Take a few turns with your whip finisher and snip your tying thread off. At this point, we're done the extended body. So once you've done that, you may need to gently jiggle the extended body as you pull it off the shank. There may be some leftover thread underneath. It's not the end of the world. Make a slit on the bottom piece of foam back by the start of the extended body and one up by the front. You can slide the hook through the back slit and then poke your hook eye through the front. Secure the fly in your vise and take just a few drops of super glue or UV clear cure and bind the two pieces of foam together. You may have a little bit of super glue seeping out from the sides. You're going to want to scrape that off so that it will not interfere when we're tying in our rubber legs. Once your super glue is dried, start your thread up where you want your next segment to form. Take the tag end of your thread and your bobbin and pull in opposite directions to bind down the thread and make that segment nice and clean. Then snip off the tag of the thread. Take a length of rubber leg material and tie them in at that segment. Pull tight on the bobbin so that the rubber legs are going out perpendicular from the body of the fly. As you can see here, it gets a little bit messy, but as is always the case with rubber leg material, we can pull it into place. Fold your rubber leg material back and make a diagonal wrap over the top of the fly and build your next segment. A handy trick I think I first saw in a Kelly Gallup tying video is to take a length of plastic straw and cut it down the middle. You can use that to keep those rubber legs out of your way. For the underwing, we're going to tie in a little bit of crystal flash. This is the smallest crystal flash I have, but they do make it in a midge flash variety, which will be even better. Since it's the underwing and it's going to be bound down by our EP fibers, I'm not too worried about the orientation of that crystal flash. On Jake's pattern, he uses a little bit of CDC underneath this wing, but frankly, I didn't have any on hand and it was snowing when I made this video, so we're going to go without it. Using a little bit of super glue at the base of your wing can really help this fly's durability. While it might seem like overkill, weather during squala season can be pretty nasty and the light can be very flat, so adding a post of bright colored foam on the top of the wing can be pretty helpful in terms of increasing the fly's visibility. Take another diagonal wrap on the top of the fly and make another segment. tie in one last length of rubber leg material in your last segment of the fly. Again, pulling hard in either direction to make sure that those legs are splaying out perpendicular from the body of the fly. Once you've got your rubber legs tied in, take a diagonal wrap over the top of the foam, make one last segment behind the hook eye, grab that straw, pull your materials back, T-turns with the whip finisher, snip your tying thread off close. You can trim your materials as you go or save it for the end as I've done here. A few snips of the scissors, evening up the rubber legs and making sure that wing looks nice and proportional. While it's certainly not necessary, a little touch of super glue on your thread wraps in those body segments can really help with this fly's durability and keep it fishing after it's been smashed a few times. And there you have it, my best attempt at tying Jake Schutt's Blackout Stone, one of my favorite stonefly patterns right now. If you go into your local fly shop and see these in the bins, they're going to look a lot prettier than what's spinning on my vise right now. Definitely encourage you to grab a few and go get them.